Hello, friends, and welcome to an episode of Star Trek Explores Cinemondo.
Really?
No, it's
It is not that.
yeah, but it's and I wore my Spock ears. I told you guys I'd wear my Spock ears.
Those look good.
You
But
can't
they're
see
covered
them.
up. Yeah,
you can't see them
them.
because I'm wearing
Mhm.
headphones, but they're
I saw 'em.
really they're like original casts from Leonard Nimoy's ears, and they fit me perfectly. Anyway, today we're going to talk about an episode of Star Trek called Space Seed, which is one of the most popular episodes, I think, for a reason we'll discuss later. But it's a star date 3141.9. First aired February 16th, 1967. And today we have a special guest, Mr. Mark Maddox.
Oh, hi.
Who he's not a huge fan of Star Trek, but we brought him along anyway.
Yeah, he doesn't know much about it.
Those are
Yeah.
fighting words.
Oh no, that's like the worst thing you could say about Mark.
I know Mark is actually probably the number one fan.
I wouldn't
I
go
would
that
say
far
probably
either.
in the
but
top 10.
Number three, maybe. I don't know.
I like Star Trek.
I like it.
It makes me happy.
But this is one of those episodes that everybody loved. This is one that if somebody has not ever seen Star Trek, you can get them to watch this one, and they'll probably like it. And it's a great example of the thing that we talk about all the time with Star Trek is they're just so good with their casting. With their secondary casting. Like the special guest casting. It's always so good. Don't you agree? You guys can talk too.
No, it was like you were going, and we figured there was a little bit more
You're on
there.
a roll.
Yeah, I mean, well, this is a horse of a different color with me with Star Trek. The first season is my favorite.
Yeah.
Okay, out of pretty much all Star Trek, but this is one that isn't necessarily about going out into space, deep space, and some alien gives them some grief or something like that. There's no
Right.
lizard men to fight. There's no giant spaceship grabbing theirs and taking it where it wants to.
Yeah.
This is a more human episode with basically Earthmen having to clean up their messes
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
what it is. And we know what happens after this. We know that years later, you've got the director, I forget his name, but Nicholas Meyer goes and watches this and takes what is considered a decent episode for the first season and taking it and running with it and making a lot more out of it, which now puts more importance back on this episode. So it's almost retroactively more important than if it was a straight thing and that had never been made. Wrath of Khan had never been made. I don't know if we'd be, but people, this gets pulled along with it. And the episode, the Space Seed, right? Like we said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a super strong episode, though, even if it hadn't been, sequelized in one of the feature films. It's, Ricardo Montalbán is so powerful in this, and it's a style of acting that you really don't see. It's like, we talk about charisma and how actors have this charisma. And there's kind of like when certain actors walk into the room, there's this sort of this vacuum that it's like, wow, this is a bigger than life, larger than life. And he really is kind of an actor that's like that. He's got that larger than life gravitas, which is perfect casting for this because he plays this, genetically enhanced superior being who was a ruler on the earth. He was like a dictator, and he and his group of these sort of, computer button pushing, Starfleet captains who everybody thinks is so heroic in the Star Trek realm. But this guy actually lived back when, things were rough. And it is kind of this romance of, there's a historian character on the show, Marla McGivers, played by Madeline Rue, who sort of just falls for him before he even wakes up. Because I think he's a man of the past. She's a historian, so here is history alive in front of her, a person from the past. It'd be like if we woke up, Napoleon, and some people would be like, wow, he is attractive because he lived during this time.
He's a
when
manly
people had
man.
to be- yeah.
I love the fact that Burke made the same mistake that Kirk Burke and Kirk. Burke and Kirk.
Burke.
Burke made the same mistake that Kirk did too when he called her McGivers, and Spock goes, Lieutenant MacGyvers.
MacGyvers. Oh, okay.
That's right.
No relation to MacGyver.
That's
but
awesome.
no, but it's like it's interesting to me. Gee, I mean, there's so much about the show to love. There's also some stuff that I really get a big laugh out of.
Right.
And I actually thought about this when I was asked to come on the show this week, and I said I'm going to wait for Kathy's likes and dislikes, because I think she's going to get a backhoe and dig into a few things about this episode. Like, and I kind of don't blame her. I don't blame her. It's like, but we'll wait.
At the same time, though, we'll wait. But I still really love this episode because it is pure entertainment. Like, the whole thing is so entertaining. It doesn't feel as preachy as some of them can get. It's just I feel like they have this great villain. It's kind of old school villain we can all relate to. It's not some weird alien. It's like, this guy who, if anything, is even, more like us back then than we are now. So I really enjoyed that part of it. So it's not an episode that I hold in disdain at all, even though, the sexism of it, which is just part of Star Trek.
But that's
it still
part of
made
character.
Right. It made sense in the context of what this character was, and so I, think of what these women have to look at all the time, these guys in these outfits, and they're all very scientific. And then you have this guy who's like, whoa.
Well, I heard the original draft of this episode was called Pig. And they
was he looking for a lost pig?
Pig. Yeah, that's what it was.
New pig.
No, yeah, good pig.
You're a good pig.
But no, I mean, the thing is, it's when you look at Ricardo Montalbán in this one, and I love episodes where they bring on somebody that Shatner. In other words, that is at the level. Oh, William Wyndham's in this episode? Good. Yeah. William Marshall's in this episode? Good. Ricardo Montalbán's in this episode? Shatner's over there off to the side going like this.
Yeah.
Like, are they going to have Shatner
amp it up?
It's like, wait, I'm Ham on the show. Who's this guy being a bigger Ham?
Well, it's interesting because Shatner does downplay it. There's an old story by Climb Every Mountain, Board Every Stream. What's his face from the one who just passed? Look, I love him. I'm having a hard time. Yeah, Christopher Plummer. I'm having a terrible time with names the last year or so. Christopher Plummer said that he was, of course, doing Shakespeare. You guys know the story. He was doing Shakespeare, and he got sick, and he was in the hospital, and it was bad. And they brought in Shatner was his understudy, and he came in. And what happened is that every time the great Shakespearean speech was supposed to happen, Christopher Plummer would then stand up and start giving it and all that kind of stuff. And he said he went to the back of the theater one of the nights that Shatner was doing it, and Shatner started the speech and then sat down, and he goes, "Oh, he knew how to outdo me." And that's the thing is, if you get Shatner when he's, like in this, when Khan's doing all of his, we gave the world order on this, watch Shatner. He actually goes low. He actually tones down and proves what a professional he is to let these other people pontificate and everything. Like when he confronts Khan. Basically, who are you, Burke? Are you going to go ahead and give the basic plot of the story? I mean, about what's happening?
Yeah, give a quick synopsis.
Start with the.
Well, speaking of the acting and upping someone, Shatner got, several years after this, he sort of took it back when he did Khan. When he did that thing. He that's considered one of the moments, one of the most legendary moments of overacting ever committed to film.
But for a lot of people, it worked. It's one of those. It's almost like Nicholson in The Shining. It's like, it's over the top, but damn, I don't want anything else, Yeah. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
But basically, the premise is they find these people frozen. They find an old derelict spaceship from centuries ago, out floating around in space, and there's life signs on it. So they go over and wake up these people who are frozen on there, and they realize that they don't know immediately who they are, but then they gradually realize these people are from the old times when we had a war, and these guys were like the despots. They were taken over. They were the tyrants. And Khan was the leader. His sleep pod woke up first, because he was supposed to get up and decide what to do with the others. And so these people from the distant future on a starship have these kind of wildlings on board who are, like warriors. And they have this idea, this sort of eugenics style idea about superior beings and superior people and, superiority and all that kind of stuff. And, he's also, takes what he wants from the women, and he's not like the people of the Star Trek times, which is really interesting. The play back and forth, and the fact that there is a historian on board who's fascinated by him because she's fascinated by warriors and of the past. And it goes on. There's a lot of back and forth between the, Kirk and him and upper, they get the upper hand and he gets the upper hand. And finally at the end, they overcome the bad guys with cleverness, of course. And the ending idea, spoiler for a million-year-old show, they send them to this planet. They find a planet, Ceti Alpha somewhere. And they say, we're going to give you this uninhabited planet. It's got plants and whatever else you need for to start your own civilization, and all your 80 frozen tyrants can go down there and start your own world. And so they do, and that's the happy ending of the episode. And Spock, says, "It would be interesting, Captain, to return to that world in 100 years and to learn what crop has sprung from the seed you planted today." And you do get to find out.
You did that from memory. That was good.
That was really good.
Totally from memory.
And I like the eyebrow, like the Spock eyebrow.
Yeah.
Very good.
But,
that was really good.
But yeah, we do find out, as everybody knows, in the film The Wrath of Khan, which is the second of the feature films. And it was, Wrath of Khan is 1982, so it was a little bit after they filmed this. Like 20-something years later. And less than 20 years, right?
No, it's about 15 years, something like 15, 16 years, something like that.
So not that long after the series. Really.
It seemed like a long time when we were kids.
Yeah.
And now it's like, wow, that was a nothing. That was a
yeah. But they go back. They return to this planet, and they find out that they did screw up. It was they put them on this planet, and I think there was a volcano that erupted or whatever. So Khan and his people are, and I guess, Marla MacGyver's died because of the harsh environment, so he is never forgiven Captain Kirk, and so he comes after him. And the whole episode, the whole film, the feature film, The Wrath of Khan, is Khan trying to trying to overcome Captain Kirk to get revenge. It's a classic movie. Some people think it's the best of the feature films.
Yeah, it's what had happened is that right after they got deposited on the planet and all the kind of stuff, I think the sun went nova and pushed it out of, or destroyed one of the other planets. Marla MacGyver's, there was those creatures that could go inside your ear and make you susceptible. Right. She got one of the creatures went in her ear and killed her.
Right.
And so now we're getting a variation. There's a whole bunch of overlapping in Wrath of Khan, and I want to do it for a second and then run back to the show because this isn't about the movie. Is the overlapping of obsession. It's there's a lot of references to Moby Dick. There's a lot of quoting from it. There's Khan had become obsessed with Kirk. And get a little bit sort of like, Kirk kind of did you a pretty damn good thing by just going, no, we're not going to take you back to the starbase and put you in irons. By not killing you. Yeah, it's like they tried to suffocate Kirk twice.
Yeah.
And they were ready to kill people and blow up the starship. And Kirk goes, you know what, we're going to take you to a planet that's kind of tough, but I think you're 5 times our strength. You can handle it. And they didn't know it was going to go frickin' nova and blow up, but Khan lost his mind, and so we've got this film, which the masterpiece part of that film is the fact that they took a very famous character that we all love and said, hey, you're getting older.
Yeah.
Hey, you got a son from all of your Tomcat, James Tomcat Kirk. You've got some checks to pay because you've got a son that hates your guts,
right?
And a wife, or at least a woman that you were with, that is pissed off at you too. It's a pretty amazing film in that respect. I think it's a groundbreaking film for that.
And also, spoiler for a million-year-old film, Mr. Spock dies at the end.
What?
Stop it!
I never saw the ending.
I have a little clip. Do you want to see a little clip from it?
Sure.
Sure.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Clip from the
Yeah.
Wrath of Khan.
Why not? I mean, let's see. Let me make
But
sure
yeah, I mean
have it.
that film, they did so much in that one movie.
Yeah.
Nicholas Meyer's great.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the.
You can see the little
creepy-
icky thing. That's the gross bug in your ear.
Ew.
Ugh.
That's like a really giant fake ear with a hand puppet.
It's really nasty.
It really is.
It really is nasty. But
But no match for a phaser.
Really, Kurt
But here's a funny
took-
thing about the film is that Mr. Chekhov is in it, and he wasn't in the series. He hadn't been cast on the series yet. So from a casting point of view, Chekhov could never have met Khan. But from a story point of view,
From a who gives a crap.
yeah, he could have met him somewhere. He could have been.
I don't know. I sort of,
it's a pretty small universe. He could have met him somewhere.
He could have
There's
been
so
on the ship
many
already.
discrepancies from one episode to another, and everybody starts analyzing it. It's like the Planet of the Apes movies. If you try to tie it all together, all the guy that professionally tried to, it's one of these things where you go, just give it a rest. This is about drama. This is about hard, as Sam Fuller said, this is about hard-hitting melodrama is what it's about. So on that level, it's fantastic.
Oh, yeah. I've never been bothered by things like that, really. I mean, honestly, with films like this, I can get into each film as a separate entity, you know?
But you hear fans like picking that stuff apart where it's like, they totally blew it. They went out of context. They took it out of the time frame. They messed up the universe. You're just like,
they ruined my childhood.
Now, I'm going to run down a rabbit hole here. So much Star Trek has been done since the original series, and so many series and cartoons and comic books. I get even irritated when somebody says they hate the Gold Key comic books. That pisses me off. I love the Gold Key comic books.
I love those things.
Other than the rocket exhaust coming out of the engines,
I was
and
about
a few
to say,
other
I don't
things.
even mind that.
Yeah, I mean, but I look at, I own several pages from those the early Star Trek comics. There was a package of photographs and some material about what Star Trek was about, packed up and sent to Rome, Italy, where these guys from Italy did all the artwork. Star Trek never showed in Italy until the 70s. They were going off of this package of information that they did. Now with Voyager and Deep Space Nine and Starships doing all this other crazy stuff and all the wild stuff, you look at these comics and go, it kind of really does seem more plausible that it would fit. Just, it doesn't look exactly like the old show, but there's a lot of cool stuff in there. Anyway, that was my rant.
The stories are different from the show. You know, they're
I'm out of the rabbit
show
hole.
Stories.
I'm sorry.
That was not a very deep rabbit hole.
That always pisses me off. Oh, actually, your Cinemondo Star Trek, you got it from the comic book.
Yeah, that's the comic book logo.
Very nice.
Yeah.
By the way, I liked your music at the beginning. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was an attempt to do the sort of fight theme from the show without
being sued.
Yeah.
Without using the actual copywritten.
But back to the show. It's one of those things where you're looking at a guy who is so powerful that if you follow him, I don't want to say you'll be taken care of, but it's like pointing or fixating who's the strongest person here.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like Khan is totally confident.
Yeah.
Almost to ridiculous proportion. I mean, he almost makes Sean Connery and James Bond look sort of like, hey, you're kind of a wimp in comparison. Yeah. But it's sort of like, it's that sort of thing. It's like, you're going to be safe with this guy if he is your leader. And I don't know. I mean,
you don't piss him off. You don't get on his bad side.
Well, don't piss him off, Yeah. I mean, just
don't piss him off. Also, don't try and talk about history when all he wants to do is see you with your hair down. That's basically what it's about.
And
I just say it.
He wants you to sit and entertain him.
Please stop talking and entertain me.
Yeah.
But he's that sexist He-Man, dominating everyone thing. That's what he does. And that's why I think it was funny to see him and Kirk together, because Kirk is used to being like you were saying, like the top dog, and here comes this guy. He's like, whoa, hold on, like, this old school shit still works. Wait, what?
Yeah. Planet of the Pigs, right? Rated R. So Kathy, let me ask you a question. Kathy, so you're watching Khan and it's like it takes about 10 seconds from this woman who's come in and is talking to him for them to be kissing. And then there's the scene where she comes in and goes, well, I'm talking to him and all that kind of stuff, and he starts to hit on her, and she goes like, no, please don't, and he goes, go,
go then,
or stay, but do it because it is what you wish to do, that kind of thing. And then finally gets her to the point where she goes, no, please, I'd like to stay. Now, how do you feel about that?
Well, I look at it as, okay, so she is an educated woman. She's a historian, right? I mean, for some reason they have one of those. So she is used to dealing with men on an intellectual level for the most part, because they're all scientists or on this shit. So I think when this guy came on, he was such a novelty. Like, she's like, whoa, hold on, I got to think about this for a second. She wasn't used to this sort of primal masculinity, so it was sort of repelling at first. Like, whoa, I got to think about this. But then at the same time, she's like, well, this is kind of different. I'm kind of liking it. Let me think. Maybe I should just sort of see where this goes. There's sort of that resistance, and I think just the acquiescing, because it is so unique to every man she'd been dealing with. So I think, in a way, it makes sense, but at the same time, it did feel a little harassy.
Yeah,
but at the same time, he said she could leave, and she didn't.
Well,
so
okay. I was going to say, would that scene play nowadays? Like, if we filmed it today on some show, what would you be like? Hey, why don't you go to hell? And then she storms off. I don't know.
They still do happen, though. Those scenes are still around, where the woman says no, and then, oh, what I really meant was yes. So they're just trying to show that I have my own mind. And I think, part of it is I think he's just, it's just,
it's just too fascinating, for no pun intended. Too fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's very primal. I think it just he's primal. The attraction was primal, and she wasn't used to it.
History,
and she'd already knew a little bit about him. So
the set dressing in her bedroom or in her quarters.
She had a painting of him in there.
Said actually really nice artwork. I don't know who did those paintings, but they were nice.
No, they were nice. They was good. Yeah,
like nice watercolor.
I love the fact that it says 60s looking.
Yeah.
It's right next to the bullfighter painting.
Right.
I thought they were cool,
Yeah, and she's got sculptures in there of Earth history. Like Kathy said, it's funny that they would have an Earth-based historian on, a starship. But I guess maybe in a way, if they do encounter cultures that have certain aspects, alien cultures, she might be able to offer some sort of insight into it based on Earth history.
Well, I would also think too, it's like, she does have this specialty, but I'm sure she's on the ship for other reasons. Yeah, it's not just this focused, okay, I know all about Earth, a general something that she's on there for, but
like a sports scholarship or something.
Yeah.
It's true. I have this clip. It was a continuation of the first scene we showed, where I think McCoy actually out-manlies Khan.
He's
together. And that's one of my favorite. I'm kind of going into my, accommodations. It's one.
I was going to act it out for you, but if you got the clip, just
so this is your scene.
Yeah. Well, in a few minutes, but they cut the scene. They cut the scene where he told McCoy, "Go unless you want to stay."
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And when he's like, you'd look better with your hair down.
Yeah. So soft.
That's the thing. He's from where you two guys met, I guess, Atlanta. I mean, he was a film usher in Atlanta, Georgia.
I love that.
That's where he came from.
DeForest Kelley?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Hilarious.
He was a movie house usher in Atlanta, Georgia, and he goes, you know what? I want to kind of be involved in what I'm seeing up on the screen, and he went out to California.
Wow.
Back in the 40s.
A friend of mine lived right across the street from him in Hollywood, over near over near your old place, Kathy, up in the Hollywood Hills.
I met him twice, and he was wonderful, but he was quite a bit older. I mean, he was way older, but it was really nice to meet him. Very soft-spoken. I think he was a great guy. I will say this: anytime I post pictures of any artwork I've done with like William Shatner, you get a good response. Leonard Nimoy, response goes up. DeForest Kelley, it goes way up.
Huh.
Like your likes are like really up there, and I'm like, I think people love D. Kelly sometimes the best.
Yeah,
out of the people on the show.
He was
amazing.
You just posted some really great pencil drawings that you did of the characters, like the I think Kirk, McCoy, and Spock, right?
And Spock, right? Yeah, it was
and the Trinity. And they're such classic drawings. They're really good. Anybody who hasn't seen them needs to track you down and look at your drawings.
I did them for it was the 50th anniversary, and I'm like, every once in a while, even I get so romantically involved in some of something like when Roger Moore died. For some reason, I had to draw some pictures of Roger Moore. I had to get it out of my system.
Yeah.
And so I did a 50th anniversary. I remember the 10th anniversary. I remember me calling all my friends here in town. And it was like, we were like, oh, it's so many minutes until Star Trek premiered 10 years ago. Now it's 50. Now it's 55. Yeah. So at the 50th anniversary, I did these 3 pieces and had no intention of doing anything other than selling them as, private. And they ended up being published in the British magazine Infinity. And it's just cool. Because and then I sold them. But as a matter of fact, the Shatner one got signed by Shatner.
Oh, nice.
The guy who bought it took it to him and had him sign it. So
that's very cool. That's awesome.
This is all, as a matter of fact, I didn't even think about it till later when I was watching the episode that we were going to do. When I was watching Space Seed, it's like, oh, that's where I got that photograph that I worked from of William Shatner. It's actually from Space Seed.
Oh, that's funny.
It's where he's turning around. It's like, cutting off your oxygen, Captain.
So we should go into accommodations and anomalies.
Accommodations provided by
Accommodations provided by Cinemondo.
Accommodations.
I have 5 times your strength.
We got to think of easier words. I can't say that.
You're commending them. You're
commending and anomaly.
Commendations. Yes. It's I mean, who wants to go first with the things that they love most about this episode?
I think Mark.
Go ahead, Kathy. Okay, you go first.
Well, I played the clip of what I liked. I liked McCoy getting his big moment of being the masculine guy.
That was a great scene.
I thought that was pretty great because it was a little more unexpected, and he was so cool about it. I thought that was pretty fun. And Ricardo Montalbán was so entertaining. He was so fully invested in the character, so fun. I enjoyed him in the episode, and I agree with what you said earlier that if someone hasn't really seen a lot of Star Trek and you want to show them an episode, this would really be the one because it's just endlessly great. It's so much fun. And so, that's basically my commendation.
Okay. I'll go next. I do agree with you on the McCoy scene. Mm-hmm. I think it's fantastic. One of the things I really love about it, having watched it, I mean, I've seen this thing I don't know how many times, but watching it again this week with, I got to be on a podcast, so I better do this right. And actually paying attention to every word and putting the text on the bottom to make sure I didn't miss anything and all that is the fact that despite they didn't make you completely hate him.
Right.
No, they didn't.
There was things where even when Scotty and McCoy and Kirk are talking and Spock's like, the hell are you guys talking about? He's a scumbag. And it's like, well, there were some certain things that they said about him. Yeah. But even the fact that everybody on the ship that they reactivated, brought back from the stasis or whatever, was mixed. It was even in the villainy of this guy, there was I really am trying for a better future for everybody. And it was, they said there's Asians, there's this, and all that. And it was like, that was good. And then on a personal level, as a little boy, as a little kid watching this when I saw it when I was real little, when Khan is told he's locked in his room and he takes his hand and puts him against the door and rips the door open and hits that stuntman and the guy just goes flying. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall. Okay, you're going to throw your fist. This guy's going to run in and then do a spin and then flip through the air or something. And I'm like, wow. Yeah. Because they cut it just right where that guy gets hit in the face and spins out of control and then lands on the ground. Yeah. And, it's just stuff like that. And then the fight at the end where Kirk has to kick his ass.
Yeah, who are those guys fighting at the end? It's like suddenly there's 2 other guys come running in and start fighting.
Yeah, I know. They were stand-ins.
Yeah, why? Don't mess up the scene.
Well, back in those days, everybody was watching this on an old CRT television, and nobody
possibly
ever
black
suspected.
And white.
Yeah, nobody suspected that your television would someday be so clear that you can,
that it would dwarf a lot of film.
Yeah,
in some ways. I mean, I remember seeing these things at 16 millimeter at conventions that, I was stunned even then.
Yeah.
And nowadays it's like, it's so blatantly not. I mean, I swear to God, you see Khan get up and it's like, I'm from Jersey.
Yeah.
Some guy, that they put a little makeup on and a wig and everything like that. But
it's like
still,
Chip the stunt man.
You just go. By the way, one thing I wanted to bring up real quick, since we are doing Star Trek, is the death of Eddie Paskey.
Oh yeah, recently
he passed away recently. He was Shatner's stunt double, and he had some lines in episodes and stuff like that. But to me, that's one of the important things of Star Trek. I mean, Captain Kirk got into a lot of fist fights and a lot of stuff, and Paskey was the guy most of the time that did it. So he was
in the show too.
Yeah,
he was
sat
in the
show
chair and he sat in the Chekhov chair, and he was also in this episode as a sort of a high up guy, because when they had their big sort of formal dinner, he was seated at the table with Uhura and Scotty and Dr. McCoy and Spock.
And he got knocked out when they did when they cut off the oxygen to the bridge and everything. And I remember his name. I mean, I was like 14, 15 years old when I first said Eddie Paskey's William Shatner's stunt double. I'm like, oh, okay. And so for all these years, and to find out he passed away, there was no fanfare, and it kind of irritated me.
I know,
a little bit. Yeah,
he went to the conventions. I think he felt the love. I think he knew that
he deserved it.
Yeah. He was in there. He was. I always remember him as this sort of Elvis looking guy in the background. That the cool looking guy who looked like he could hit somebody in the face. Like punch an alien.
So, Burke, what's your commendation?
My commendation is kind of a strange one, because normally I really love the shows where they go to planets and they see aliens and they encounter alien cultures, and they, like Mark was talking about earlier, it's a show about space, But this one, like you said, was a show about Earth people, but from different eras. But the thing is, it's also almost a bottle show, in that it takes place almost entirely on spaceships.
See, those are my favorite. I'm one of the odd ones out of. I love
like that too. I
I
understand what you're talking about, Kathy, because some of the episodes we've talked about are on the ship almost exclusively.
Yeah,
just kind of depends on what the plot is.
Yeah,
true. If it's well written, it can work. But sometimes I'm a little distracted by some of the bad production, cheap production design on planets.
Yeah.
So I like on the ship, it's like, it's tight. We know what's happening. And then it just becomes about writing and relationships. And I think that's why I like it.
Yeah. And this one had they had the set that they built for the interior of the SS Botany Bay with all those sleep chambers, which is a pretty amazing set, thinking about low budgets and whatever. It's like, that's one scene, where you go in and resurrect these people, but they did such a beautiful job on those compartments and the way it slides out, and you see him slide out on this tray, like on a shelf. And then they also, for this episode, built another set specifically for this show, which was the vacuum environment chamber where they put Kirk and they take the oxygen out of it. And that was
that.
Yeah.
That was a really
like that.
It's a cool set, because it had more. It did more than it needed to do. It had this really cool latching system, and it also had this
trying to
door
do the
that
Shatner.
opens up, and another door opens up.
Sorry, I was trying to get far back enough to do that.
That was really good.
I plan on doing the
Bravo.
There you go, Bert. Get your arms out all the way up to the spine. Shatner tired.
But that set was a little bit more than it had to be. The people who made the sets, designed the sets, and built them on this show, they were always so good. Even when Kirk just pulls out a piece of gear on engineering, he pulls this thing out from behind him, this weapon, which basically solves the whole show. And he uses this device that he pulled out of the wall, which you assume is like heavy kind of metal, and he whomps, Khan with that.
Well, I mean, that's right. That's right. When Khan goes, I have 5 times your strength. And then Kirk just kind of pulls this little wobbly thing out of the wall and just starts, well, I guess I'm going to have to pick up something and hit you with it. And gets him in the stomach.
But even that little device that he pulls out of the wall, it's designed better than it
Matt Jeffries. It's got that Matt Jeffries look to it. That the same thing. It looks like, that looks like part of a Klingon ship or something. But it's got the little wedge and all that. And I'm like,
still looks like it was made by the same
future.
people who made the Agonizer. It's got that aesthetic. And the aesthetic of this show is so beautiful. I love that's my commendation is the fact that you could. The sets and the props and everything on this show were so good that you could have a bottle show, and it's interesting and fascinating because you're in engineering, you're in the conference room, you're in the transporter room, which we see from a different angle in this one, which is interesting. And Things like that. I mean, it's like the way they used the interior of the Enterprise was really nice, and that's my commendation.
That was great.
Cool.
All very different.
Set dressing stuff and design and props and whatnot. I like that stuff.
Well, it is funny to me that we talk about the minimalism of Star Trek. I mean, there was a time there when Star Trek in the 60s looked like the future, and then you started moving up to Star Wars and Blade Runner and all that kind of stuff, and said, boy, that looks so hokey. But then you see those recent launches up into space where there's like 3 guys, 3 chairs, and 3 monitors and a couple of dots, and I'm like, oh, we're back to Star Trek now.
Yeah.
You know, we're almost back to that. I mean, if you did that as a set, even on Outer Limits, they would have gone, boy, that's cheap. You know, so I don't know. I mean, I think one of these days it's going to be a lot more minimalist than we would have thought 3 centuries from now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, it comes back around. It's like you can say that about 2001: A Space Odyssey too. It's like that used to have such a 60s look when he arrived on the moon, and you see the Pan Am looking flight attendants, but then you're like, okay, that's kind of retro now, and it looks cool again, and the way she's dressed is really kind of cool.
Yeah.
Okay,
so do we
now,
have any anomalies? Things that we just didn't like about the show, or things that, you know, if you care to point out any flaws or discrepancies?
I think even though I gave it a pass earlier about the woman falling in love with him like that and why, I think I would have enjoyed it more, and I understood it. Like, I kind of got what they were trying to go for, the whole primal attraction idea. I wish that she had sort of backed out of it at some point and been like, you know, a sort of came back to her intellectual identity and kind of resisted it.
She did, though. She went and saved Kirk, you know.
Yeah, she did, but she still went off with him to another planet. You know, I would like to have seen her kind of like disconnect from him. I'm like, no, I don't want this shit. Like, it just felt like it was sort of rewarding this sort of toxic masculinity idea, because he was very abusive and controlling, that it would have been cool to have seen her kind of drawn in by it at first, and then, you know, gotten out of it and gone back to, you know, being the scientific officer. So that was it was a little disappointing to see her never really recover.
It was
so that was
weird
probably
that
my
she
main
seemed
gripe.
okay to admit to Kirk that she wants to go with him, because Kirk said, you can go with him if you want. Do you want to go? And she's like, yes, I do.
See, I hated that. I did not want that.
Even
so I was hoping she'd go, no, I'm not going, because she knew who she was, but she was just, you know, going to be putting up with that, and it cost her her life. So there you go.
It would have been interesting if she had said, yes, I do want to go, and Khan looked at her and said, you have no honor. You know, it's like, why would I want a woman who doesn't stand with her captain? You know, you've betrayed your captain. I tried to kill him, and now you're siding with me, you know.
Yeah, at the same time, though, I feel like that would be shaming her. Like, I wanted her to make the decision, not Khan, you know, even though that would have been funny too, actually. But because that would be totally what he would do, is being, you know, the sort of manipulative asshole that he was. He would be like, oh, so you're going to be that now. Be like, you know, never pleasing him. So, you know, that was probably my main gripe, is like to see the trope of the like, oh, he's so manly, and then just have her not ever really get out of it. That was a little bit of a drag, but overall, I got it.
I agree with you 100%. And as a father, if my daughter was like hanging around a guy like that, I'd go find a shotgun.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh, I would. It'd be like,
just find an oxygen chamber.
Yeah.
Look, the second when she turns to him in modern times, no, please, I'd like to stay. It's like, what the hell? What have I taught you about pigs?
Right.
I just want to try out the pig once. Then I'll be back to my normal self.
The pig is fascinating.
So it's one of those things where I'm like, you know, that kind of drives me up the wall. Yeah. And also Kirk, and he said she's going to get a court martial and all that kind of stuff. She did convert, but it was so something about it just, you know, we are talking about a 52-minute or 54-minute drama. Yeah. You're having to erase yourself. Oh my God, I thought about it. I mean, I didn't sit there with a stopwatch or anything, but when she comes into his quarters, Khan's quarters, they're kissing within like about 30 seconds or something. And like, yes, we have to get this along. This is not a 2-hour film. The chemistry was
undeniable.
The chemistry was undeniable. I think the most amazing thing about it, in terms of, I think it was counterbalanced by the fact that Kirk was ballsy enough to go, I'm going to let you go to a planet. I'm not going to kill you. We're not going to put you in prison. You guys want this? You can have it. Leave us alone. Given the fact that they tried to kill him.
Yeah.
That they were threatening to kill more
They
people.
took over a
that they smacked Lieutenant Uhura in the face
Right.
at his command and everything. This is the problem I have with Wrath of Khan. Oops, this is where your ratings on your show are going to tank.
No, we're going to get tons of comments hating us. That actually works in our favor.
I don't give two hoots and a shit. It's one of these things that drives me nuts about Wrath of Khan is that he is so mad that his wife, who he treated like crap in the show, grabbed her by the wrist, put her to the floor, and was physically abusive to her. And then he's going to kill Kirk because of the death of his wife, who he treated like crap the whole time. Yeah. I mean, I expected the cop to show up, and it's like Khan opens the door, and she's got a black eye,
right?
And it's like
in his underpants,
and it's like now that could be the fact that there's enough space in between the years, and Nicholas Mayer just goes, "I'm going to go ahead and do this plot, and this is the point. You know, you dirty rat, you killed my brother or my wife." But that's the one thing that kind of drives me nuts about it is that you didn't really like your wife that much. I don't think. You really could treat her like crap.
Maybe he grew to love her on the SETI Alpha 5.
That's true. Yeah, I can agree.
Maybe
he grew to love her.
Maybe
he grew to love her. Maybe she did something cool. Maybe some monster attacked and she killed it with a sword. I don't know.
Or maybe she sort of, hipped him to the modern style of relationships and told him, let's be equals. Let's be, I can do just as much as you.
Never, not with Khan. No way equal.
Yeah.
Nope.
Remember. He had 5 times your strength.
5 times your strength.
No, but I mean that's the one thing. It's sort of like that's what I love about Wrath of Khan is the Kirk, the Spock, the McCoy, and all that kind of stuff. The other part reminds me of a Jimmy Cagney movie almost, where it's just
the women swooning all over the place.
But I mean it's still a great movie. But
it's still great. It's fun.
But this episode is one of those. That's my gripe is the Earth is cleaning up its trash.
Mm-hmm.
They created the problem. Now they're way out in deep space, and then they're you guys caused this problem. This isn't like you going to some planet or something and fixing a problem out in space.
Right.
Your stuff has followed you out there, and that's one of the things I didn't like about episodes like that.
And Kirk killed a lot of people for a lot less. Like I sort of didn't quite understand. I mean, it seemed like he's so trigger happy, but when it came to Khan, he's like, "Yeah, we'll just let you go." It's like, why?
Because they respect. Remember that scene where he says, you can dislike somebody's beliefs and still respect them.
Well, that was his justification, but he's like I said, he's killed people for less.
Well, there is a scene though where those people are waking up in that incredibly beautiful fishnet, a gold fishnet. And Khan says to one of his lead dudes, he goes, first we take the ship, then we take the Earth, and then we take the universe, or something along those lines. It's like his intent is not to be on any planet.
Right.
If Kirk had heard that, he might have just said, Spock, give me your phaser. And,
even Spock was like, what the fuck?
I mean, that's what I would have done. I will say this about the movie that gets really torn apart is I really did enjoy the Zachary Quinto fight with Khan in that the worst of the 3 Star Trek movies, what they call the Kelvin timeline. What did they call it? Timeline. I loved watching Spock and him go at it. I wish they hadn't done Khan. There's too much deep-seated DNA history with science fiction fans for them to have done that story. I thought the rumor was it was Gary Mitchell coming back from the pilot episode. And I'm like, okay, that would have been cool.
Yeah.
But to do Khan is almost, I don't want to say blasphemy because somebody could do it right. They just didn't do it right.
Too obvious. It's like too on the nose. Like
it's like let's give these people what they really want, which is Khan, and it went over the cliff. I love the first film that they did. That first one was amazing. I like
these movies actually.
I do too. I do.
Well, they're made by a fan.
I
picked he's getting it right because he's basically I feel like doing things he wants to see, and he's a big fan. So I was sort of giving him the benefit of the doubt.
But I mean, you're talking serious Trek history that spans a lot of time with people.
But again, considering it's the Kelvin timeline, it's an alternate version of Khan.
That's true.
And, that's what I try to tell people. They don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
No, it's like fans don't always get it right.
I got onto a podcast one time and I was expressing my love for, Star Trek's got to keep going. We're getting old. People are getting old. The fan, and they're going to keep going. Why do you guys tear into these new films? And I was basically told on microphone, "F you."
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it was bad, and I was like, I stand by what I said.
I think it's okay to do new versions of stuff. I think it's all right. I think it's okay to cast diverse people in roles that were only by white people. What is wrong with that idea?
Make it heartfelt and base it on the heart and the emotions and everything first, and then put everything else around it. And you've got something good, but it's like now
characters.
So many people you hear bitching about this Star Trek or that Star Trek or whatever. It's like, oh my God!
It's like why not have a black James Bond or a woman James Bond?
Exactly.
I mean, it's it maybe change the name from James or something, but it's like
just keep it the same. It's fictional.
Yeah, James could be, but it's a fictional character, and that's the thing that people who like comic books kind of have built into us, because comic book characters have been rebooted so many times. When we were kids,
so different. Yeah,
Batman was already 80 years old or something, and it's like his origin story in the original stories took place in the I guess when he was a kid in the late 1800s or something. Yeah. And so you have to reboot every so often, and add the new technology and the new styles and the new and a new person becomes Batman. A new person becomes Captain America. Captain America might be a black guy now, which is cool. I think that's great.
Might as well.
Yeah.
I mean, why
hurt
not?
my childhood at all. It doesn't. No. It doesn't ruin my childhood.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too. I mean, somebody goes, "Well, I really hate all forms of Star Trek." Well, you got those 3 seasons in a box. If you don't want to go any further, put them on. I mean, there's Star Trek that I absolutely love. Certain films or episodes of shows and stuff that I absolutely love that I know other people just hate, and it kind of irritates me that you're so vehement and so like we are going to hammer you with our hatred of this, that, or the other, and it's like, you know what? They're still going to be playing this stuff long after we're dead. Yeah. So why don't you just calm down?
And there's probably going to be rebooted versions of it after we're dead too. Really. And whatever the newest hot young actors are going to play Kirk and Spock. In 50 years.
And it should. It's a great setup. It's a great. They're great characters. Let's just keep going.
It's vast. It's vast. You can sit here and complain about Doctor Who isn't what Doctor Who used to be, and it's like. That might be just because at this point the right writer and the right director aren't on it, but you'll get the right one. You'll get the person that goes, we have to go back to the human story on this. Yeah. And if you do it, it'll be fine. And it's like, people.
Who's your favorite Doctor Who?
For me, Tom Baker.
And Burke, do you have one?
And then John Pertwee and then Patrick Troughton.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think Tom Baker probably for me too, just because that was my first Doctor, the first Doctor Who I remember. And I
think that's important that you say that. It's the first one you saw.
Yeah. Not for me, it wasn't. My first was John Pertwee. It was a remake of Quatermass in the Pit called the Daemons.
Well, see, I did not watch Doctor Who. I started watching it with the reboot with David Tennant and then Matt Smith. I love them. I tried to watch the old Doctor Who. I'm like, blah, I don't want it. It's like, to me, it's like the first Doctor Who for me. David Tennant is the one I like. That's just so I think that happens too with some of the Star Trek.
That's what kept me from watching them when I was young.
First of all, David Tennant is a great actor.
He is great. He's wonderful. I know. Broadchurch and everything else.
Yeah,
I'm just saying. And Matt Smith is a superb. I think he's almost like why the hell isn't he way more famous?
I know, exactly.
I don't think they've had a bad person cast as the Doctor yet.
It's been pretty solid.
just think some seasons stink. In comparison to others, but
we digress.
It's all important. We should talk forever.
We are going on an hour now for our Star Trek episode. It's probably time to wrap it up.
But yeah, that was Space Seed. I think I don't really have any anomalies with this one other than the ones that you talked about.
But, come on, Burke, think.
Yeah, I can't think of anything. One thing that
you said the stuntman don't look right.
The stuntman thing, of
course. But that's impossible.
Now, to me, that's kind of charming to see that because I love it when they bring in the stunt doubles. And
I heard they're digitally going to replace their faces for the next box set. They're going to put Shatner and Ricardo Montalbán on.
That's so funny. And a lot of it too is stuff they can't help because, like you said, we're seeing it on these small TVs. Now they're huge and you can see everything. So they shot for the technology at the time.
I'm fine with that.
Oh,
But the one thing I think that bothers me as a story point in it that I think it's one of those things where you have a huge story going on and there's a little tiny aspect that ends the story. I think they could have, and this is just me being picky, but I think they could have done something a little bit more clever than Kirk pulling that bludgeon out of the wall in engineering. Yeah. And that's how he beats Khan. I feel like there should have been some other clever, twisty, clever like Kirk being more clever, not physically stronger, but outsmarting him somehow in some sort of a twisty way. You know what I mean? Like
which was then done later in the film.
Yeah. Exactly. Which I was going to say. That's what they did in the film. Was they had him
two-dimensional.
Outthink him. Yeah, it was like the chess game,
Yeah.
And I think the idea of playing chess with somebody like Khan, Kirk playing chess with him, I think they should have explored that a little bit. But it turned out where he just sort of goes, "Oh, here's the thing in the wall." Bang.
Well, do you think it's kind of interesting that they had him take on like the primal aspects of combat? That Khan is, familiar with, and he kind of like reverted to that sort of primitive battle, just like Khan.
Like literally a club.
I guess I could make excuses for him.
Yeah. A bludgeon, you use an old-fashioned kind of weapon.
To beat Khan, you must become Khan, which is beat someone with a stick. That's how it works.
Or maybe the design choice for that object that he pulls out of the wall was, let's make it look a little bit like a battle axe or something, like have it be this sort of ancient style weapon that he beats him with,
Or maybe the fact that it's more phallic looking is sort of symbolically more important.
You had to go there, didn't you, Kathy?
Sorry,
you just had to go there. This is a modern conversation.
I still can't get that stalactite out of my head. I just had to do that.
It looks like a PP.
Don't symbolically it works. You can't say it doesn't work.
I did a painting one time where there was a candle behind a mummy, and this guy goes, "Oh my God, it's a Woodrow," and I'm like, "No." I sent him a picture of a submarine. I said, "This is a submarine." I sent him a picture of a train. I said, "This is a train." I said, "This is a picture of a Flash Gordon spaceship, and this is a fucking candle." You might have to bleep me on that. It's like, quit just having your mind race to it just because it's that shape, So
I've worked with people like that with graphics.
I'm sorry, I had to go.
Yeah. I've heard that so many times with doing graphic design on shows. It's like, that's phallic. It's like, it's a picture
I live
of
in
the
Tallahassee.
Empire State Building.
Have you seen our Capitol building?
Oh yeah, I remember when they were building that. Yeah,
they built it. That guy took the money and ran. It's two spheres and a straight shaft going up towards the sky.
Yeah, it's men just building entire cities out of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
that I guess is the only anomaly that I have is that he just happens to find this thing in the wall.
This giant penis in the wall, and he had to beat him with it.
This, It should have been a little bit more brainy, clever on Kirk's part to prove that in the end he really is
intellect wins.
This dude. He really is the dude.
See, that would have been the perfect wrap up even for her too. The intellect takes over, and then he was able to outsmart Khan, and she was able to outsmart Khan. That would have been better.
That these people in the future aren't these weaklings, because they made his case was that you have
You're
lost
not masculine
humanity.
anymore.
You're not masculine enough. You're not. You can't. I could take.
It's like Marla MacGyver's the way that she says that stuff, and she goes, "I think men were more exciting back then." You're hanging out with frickin' Captain Kirk, the coolest dude ever, other than maybe James Bond, and you're like.
There are some weird definitions on what masculinity is, how men are allowed to express it, how they're allowed to be, and it's like, and we're still having this battle even today of what masculinity means. And it's
I think we always will.
I mean, watch Star Trek. That battle is still happening between the intellect and the brawn. That's just how it is.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Welcome to America. Hello.
Yeah. Humanity.
All right, there we are. We ended up.
That was Space Seed. I think we covered it, right?
I think we got it good.
To bring. Was there anything else that anyone wanted to add?
I don't think there's a single thing we can add in this hour-long episode.
All right, so maybe we should.
Okay, here we go.
We should exit.
Whatever that is. Yeah, with a dance.
I pulled a tit muscle. Sorry.
Careful, Mark. Jeez.
Don't do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us for the for the Cinemondo Explores Star Trek episode Space Seed with our special guest, Mark Maddox.